Another week of waiver wire options, but this week I got several players I don't think I've mentioned at all this season. A couple of twists here, some players that you might not think are fantasy relevant, but they are. But then we have to start with the obvious ones, right? These hitters who were just on fire this past week. All right, let's start with Ceddanne Rafaela, a player who has always been kind of tantalizing with his skill set. He definitely has speed, he's got some power despite his frame, and he's definitely great with the glove. Not that we care about that, but look, this is a player who's got all those tools, just could never really put it all together. Maybe it's happening now. Well, one thing that's definitely happening is he's tapping into the power. Homer in 3 straight games, including that barely squeaked out of the yard only in Pesky's poll. Fenway, the shortest home run, if I read correctly, in like the StatCast era. It doesn't matter. It counts. He homered, won the game, and he is now hitting officially 412 over the past 8 games when this hitting streak began. Now, overall, if you look, his season average isn't great, and we should expect that. This is not a player who will hit for a great batting average, but he's got that power, got that speed, 7 stolen bases on the season. Yeah, 2020 is in the cards. But this is also a very streaky player. Right now, he's on what let's hope is not the tail end of a hot streak, but he's hot. Red Sox have been doing pretty well. Now they get to face the Yankees on the road, so we could be in for some fireworks this weekend. So sure, pick up Rafaela. I also like that you can plug him in at multiple positions, middle infield or outfield. Take a chance. Let's hope he keeps it going. And even a little bit hotter than Rafaela has been Blue Jay Addison Barger, who had been coming on, right? Mentioned him a couple of weeks ago. Someone who is starting to kind of grow into his power stroke. I didn't think he would grow this much. He had 4 straight games with a home run and 8 RBIs in the past week. Now that stopped, and he did sit on Thursday evening because there was a lefty, but that was unusual because he had been staying in to face left-handed pitching, which is always nice to see, and they got him hitting third in that lineup. And he's really a big part of why, over the last couple of weeks, the Blue Jays all of a sudden have been one of the highest scoring offenses, whereas earlier in the season they were below league average. Now, unlike certain sluggers who will go on these streaks, and you see, some of it is due for negative regression because that home run to fly ball rate is extremely high, right? They don't always leave the yard, even if they're hit hard and far. But Barger has not benefited from luck of any sort. He's only got a 15.1% home run to fly ball rate, and his fly ball rate isn't extreme, but it's above league average. So he's going to keep doing this, is what I'm saying. And he doesn't benefit from playing in a place like Coors or Great American Ballpark. And so this is real. This is legit. The fact that he's not only red hot, but also is holding his own against lefties, at least hitting 238, that's playable, but they also don't have a better option there in Toronto right now. Barger's going to continue potentially doing this. Of course, he's not going to go deep every game, but yeah, I think this is a player who's worth holding maybe longer than just a week or two. Big question about Ronnie Mauricio, an exciting young name, and a guy that we saw a glimpse of back in 2023, and could have been a breakout last year, except there was something else that broke. That, of course, being his ACL, which was torn, causing him to miss all of 2024 and just now getting to see the field for the Mets in 2025. Right, long road recovery for him. He kind of snuck up on us. Like, we knew that he would take some time to rehab, but this call up right here, right now, well, it was prompted by Mark Vientos injuring his hamstring. So now Mauricio gets a chance. He's a player that qualifies at second base, but he could also play third, could play short, could move him around. He can even play in the outfield. The question is playing time. Where will he play, and will he play consistently? And it's hard to say. Mauricio has a ton of speed. He actually has some power too. What we saw in his time with the Mets 2 years ago, in 101 at bats, he stole 7 bases, a couple of home runs. It might take him some time to really reacclimate to the majors, but he could be an impact player. The question is exactly when that's going to happen. Doesn't have a hit in his first 2 games so far, but we're going to have to remain patient. This is really more of a stash, not a guy you need to throw in your lineup just yet, but worth taking a chance on. On the other hand, you just want some help in batting average, a little bit of steals here and there. Sal Frelick has really become dependable. I mean, he's playing every single day. He doesn't sit against lefties, righties, anything. He's an everyday player for the Brewers, and he's hitting for average 291. That's definitely going to help you in any format, and especially in a points league because he's shown excellent plate discipline, does not strike out a whole bunch, and being in that lineup, despite not being a super fast player, he will get you some steals because the Brewers run as much as they possibly can. Get you a little bit of run, a little bit of RBI, a little bit of everything. So Frelick doesn't jump off the page. He hasn't been on a tear lately. He's put together a nice kind of hitting streak, but there's a guy that you don't think is exciting enough to add in fantasy, but at the end of the day, he gets you some production. Now, on to pitchers. A pitcher I have talked about in the last couple of weeks, I keep bringing up over and over again, and things keep changing with Ryan Nelson of Arizona, and finally, it's for the best. He's going to be in the rotation, unfortunately, because Corbin Burns looks like he is done. I mean, we haven't got official word as of right now, but yeah, when you have to get a second and third opinion and you're going to talk to Dr. Atrache, not good. So I'm excited to see Nelson back in the rotation because that's where he belonged. Already talked about how his second half last year was really, really dominant. It's hard to say that anybody at this point, unless it's a phenom like a young prospect who comes up, maybe like a Jack Caglione, maybe like a Bubba Chandler, we'll see. But other than that, it's hard to say that you can pick up a guy that could be a league winner from this point on. And I'm not saying Nelson could be that guy, but look what he did second half of last year. Now that he's got his shot, I think this guy who's definitely going to be very valuable going forward. So he's widely available, meaning almost everywhere unowned. And look, for those of you who like to kind of play around with your rosters and maybe stack starters, he qualifies at SP and RP because he's played both. So that gives you a little bit more flexibility. But the main thing is he's just shown he is good as a starter. The season long stats don't overwhelm you, but so far this year as a starter, a 169 ERA as opposed to 450 for a reliever. So Nelson's a guy I'm going to scoop up as much as I possibly can this week before everyone else starts to pick up on things. All right, another young pitcher who's getting a shot in the rotation due to injury in Minnesota. Pablo Lopez out a couple of months now. That is a big blow for them. So that means both David Festa and Zebby Matthews are back in the majors. Which one am I going to take a chance on? I think I'll take Zebby. Now, I was already kind of out on Festa for this season before his last start where he got lit up. But look at Zebby Matthews, one of those pitchers that I think most people who follow the farm system for Minnesota were a little bit higher on anyways. Zebby Matthews, his numbers don't look great, right? And he hasn't really had a great start, anything close to a dominant start at the majors, but he is slowly improving. After he first got called up on May 18th, yeah, it wasn't good. 4 runs allowed in 3 innings. And then the next start, better, but 2 runs in 4 innings. And then he gave up 4 runs, but he lasted 7 innings with 7 strikeouts as opposed to 1 walk. So there we see the progress. And then this last time out against the A's, 1 run in 5 innings. Inconsistent for sure, but you see the progress is being made. And of course, this is a rookie pitcher. He's going to take his lumps at times, but he's going to continue to get better. Don't assume that he's just going to keep, having this linear progression. That does not exist with prospects, especially pitchers. But I think the good from here on out should outweigh the bad. So maybe just pick your spots wisely when you're setting your lineup. All right, now I'm going to hit you with not 1, not 2, but 3 non-closing relievers. And I'll tell you why. If you caught the sell high video from just a couple of days ago, you know what I said about closers. If you're just not in the mix to be winning that category of saves, or maybe if you're already so far ahead in saves, if you don't need a stud closer that's on your roster, move him and get somebody else, right? Help your roster construction. And part of the reason that it not only could help you, but also you can always find saves at some point during the season, and that's by taking a chance on these setup guys, the next man up, who really nobody is on until it's too late. So let's go to the Yankees. Luke Weaver is out 4 to 6 weeks. Devin Williams, of course, is the closer now again, but what if Devin Williams looks like Devin Williams the last time he was the closer in the beginning of the season? Who's the next guy up after that? It should be Fernando Cruz. Now, Cruz has just been one of the best relievers in baseball, period, this season. His 38.5% CSW, very important stat. You should know it's called strikes and whiffs. It basically tells you if a guy is not only throwing strikes, but strikes that the other hitter is not hitting, he is second among all pitchers. His K rate is near 40%, and it keeps climbing year after year. Got an ERA under 3 and a whip at 1.01. And Cruz has been used in high leverage situations, got several holds. It hasn't been used for saves, of course, but I mean, look, all it takes is either Williams to get lit up a couple times or maybe to get hurt, and all of a sudden you got the closer for the Yankees. And I'll also say this for Cruz and the next two pitchers I'm going to talk about. It's okay to have a reliever on your roster that isn't getting saves, even if your league does use saves but not holds, because he helps your ratios, right? Just kind of even things out a little bit, can get you a few Ks here and there. Sometimes you can do the Franken Ace approach, which is a shout out to JB, a guy I worked with at Rotoballer. The idea is you get like 3 really good middle reliever setup guys, and you just keep those guys in your lineup all year long, and they basically make up one really good starting pitcher. It works. So you might also want to consider Randy Rodriguez of the Giants. So you know how we were all excited for Camilo Doval to get that closer job back? I know I was. Yeah, they might not last too long. They might regret it. Maybe that's why they didn't give it back to him in the first place. Very first chance, Doval blew the save, and then just today barely held on, gave up 2 hits before finally closing the door. Well, meanwhile, right before him, Randy Rodriguez was pitching a scoreless inning, a couple of strikeouts, getting another hold. So Rodriguez on the season, a 0.64 ERA, and he's got 41 strikeouts in just 28 innings pitched. He has been basically unhittable. Now, the thing is, I don't assume that Randy Rodriguez is going to get the closer job. They're still going to let Duvall go ahead and, try to hold on to it. And then they might go back to Ryan Walker. I mean, who knows? So I don't assume there will be saves in the future here. But again, this is one of those pitchers I might just add to give me the help in the ERA and the whip and the strikeouts, because this guy has been lights out and maybe he does eventually get those saves. Then, believe it or not, I'm actually going to talk about Reed Detmers. Yeah, Reed Detmers, I think we can finally just call him a bust as a starter. But a funny thing has happened. So they've moved him into the bullpen, right? This year, they're just not even trying him in the rotation because he just has not been able to handle it. And at first, it wasn't too great, but all of a sudden, he's looking like a solid late inning option. He notched his first career save just the other day. He's got 4 holds, most of them coming in the past couple of weeks, and he hasn't allowed a single earned run in the past 2 weeks. And believe it or not, there may be a path to saves here eventually because, well, Ben Joyce, the guy who I thought would be the reliever to own for the Angels, he's out for the season. And Kenley Jansen, remember, it's a 1-year deal for a non-contending team. With all these other closers on good teams not doing their job, and there's always a contender who does need a dependable arm like Jansen, whether it's for to be the closer or not. There's a good chance Jansen does get dealt. And so maybe this is the time to stash Reed Detmers and see if he winds up being the second half closer in Anaheim. Yeah, I know LA, but it's Anaheim. Same thing. It's easy to make the obvious ads, pick up who everyone else is picking up, add that guy who just had a great couple of games. You've got to do the things that the other people in your league are not doing and pick up these players who are going to be valuable before everyone else figures that out. All right, keep it locked here. The rest of the season going to help you win. Don't forget, check out the latest video and everything you need to help you in fantasy baseball.